real thing?
Yeah, it's a reproduction of the original.
Wow. When you live in the United States, you automatically inherit certain rights. Rights that Americans have fought for and died for since the birth of our country.
This is the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to our Constitution. It basically protects Americans from abuse by their government. For instance, governments used to be able to arrest people for no reason at all, to break in their homes whenever they felt like it, and to persecute people because their religion was not practiced by the majority. This document says, not here, not in this country.
The Bill of Rights guarantees us our freedoms, no matter who's running our country. For example, we have freedom of speech in America, and although our elected officials might disagree with what we say or be embarrassed by what we write, the First Amendment basically says, let all voices be heard.
As a student, like every other American citizen, you enjoy these rights too, because, as the Supreme Court once said, the Constitution does not stop at the schoolhouse door.
In this short video, we are going to show you 4 situations that students in America run into all the time, stuff that could happen to you tomorrow. Let's see if the Bill of Rights protects you in these cases, or not.
Yes, sir. Driver's license, insurance, and registration, please, sir.
Yes.
Sir, can you open your glove compartment for me?
My glove compartment? Why?
I'd like to look inside. Could you please open it for me?
Do I really have to, officer?
Okay, so does he have to open his glove compartment? What do you think? So, what's the answer? Does he have to open his glove compartment? Here's a police chief to tell us the answer.
The Fourth Amendment to the Constitution guarantees the right against unreasonable searches or seizures. For instance, if an officer pulls you over in your car and says, "Can I look into your glove compartment or your trunk?" you don't have to say yes. But there's a big but here. If you open that compartment and that officer sees something illegal to possess, for instance, an open bottle of alcohol or an illegal substance, that officer then has the right to go in and take a look and see what's in there. The Fourth Amendment protects us all against fishing expeditions or unreasonable searches. Absent consent, you have the right to say no, and it protects every one of us.
Okay, so drivers have some legal protection and cannot be searched without probable cause. And by the way, you also have the right to know why the officer is searching your glove compartment in the first place.
But what about our schools? What about your school locker?
Once again, you have some legal protection. Even though it's the school's property, the school allows you to lock it, and you have reasonable expectation of privacy.
But if a drug-sniffing dog, for instance, was to smell something, then the school can open and search it.
Now let's look at a couple of students working on their school newspaper.
So, you like it?
It's really funny, Danny, but do you think you should say that about the principal? He talks so much that someday he's bound to say something intelligent.
Yeah, he really is a wonk. And he talks way too much.
Oh, man, he'll never let us get away with that. I mean, we're bound to get into trouble.
What kind of trouble? We're journalists. We have freedom of the press. The Constitution says so.
I'm not so sure. This is a school paper. Can't the school decide what goes in and what doesn't?
So, can the students write whatever they want about the principal in the school paper? What do you think? Here's what a civil rights attorney says about this.
As with many civil rights issues, the answer can be both yes and no. If the cost of the newspaper comes out of school funds and the school is sponsoring the paper, even if they just place an ad in the paper, or if you could say that the school is sanctioning the paper, the school may have the final say. But if the newspaper is funded by students, it's just like any other newspaper in America. The writers and the editors have the freedom to criticize the administration, the courses, and the teachers. Although they, like any journalist, have a duty to be accurate and not write libelous or slanderous articles. That means they could not incorrectly print false statements about a person. The same goes for student blogs, by the way. If the student writes it on his home computer, his freedom of speech overrides any embarrassment to the school.
This next video is about something very close to our hearts. T-shirts. Let's take a look.
Joe, I'm sorry, but you just can't wear that T-shirt in this school. I won't allow it.
What's the matter, Mr. Bonner? I'm just expressing my opinion. This is freedom of speech we're talking about here. They taught me in civics I'm free to stand up and say what I believe in. Isn't that true?
The problem is that this is a very divisive issue, and you know that shirt is going to upset a lot of students. Look, I believe in freedom of speech, Joe, but I can't afford to let your T-shirt disrupt the entire school. At some point, we might have to ban all shirts with controversial messages.
So what you mean is, as principal, you have absolute authority over me, and I can only wear a T-shirt that you approve of? Doesn't sound right to me, Mr. Bonner.
Can the principal decide what T-shirt Joe can wear? Or does the First Amendment protect him? What do you think? Okay, now let's hear what a judge has to say about this.
School officials do not possess absolute authority over their students. Students in school as well as out of school are persons under our Constitution. They have fundamental rights that the state must respect. If a regulation were adopted by a school official forbidding discussion of any war, for example, it would be obvious that that regulation would violate the constitutional rights of students. A T-shirt is a form of speech, and the school cannot forbid the wearing of a T-shirt simply because the principal doesn't like it or the school wants to avoid controversy. Now, if a student's T-shirt would somehow substantially and materially disrupt the work and discipline of the school, there could be a case for banning it. You should also remember that in 2007, the Supreme Court ruled that a student cannot wear a T-shirt or use other means of expression to encourage the use of drugs or other unlawful activities. But "End the War Now" is a political expression, and the student has a right to wear that T-shirt.
Now, here's something that often happens at graduation.
Are we all set, Julie?
Almost, Mrs. Hanson. Just talk for a minute so I can get your sound level.
Okay. I would like to offer this prayer to all of our graduates today. When we place our faith in God, He is sure to move our lives. I thank God for the religious freedom we have in this country to believe in Jesus Christ, for Christ in us is the hope of glory. Amen.
Are you really going to say that at graduation, Mrs. Hanson?
Why not, Julie?
Well, I know you're head of the school board and everything, but not all of our graduates are Christians, and I think some of them might get offended.
But we are Christian here, Julie, and I see no problem with starting graduation with a simple prayer.
So, can the school allow a prayer like the one you just heard? What do you think? Here's what a civil rights lawyer says about this.
Federal law is very clear on this issue. School officials may not mandate or organize prayer at graduation ceremonies. Think of it this way. We are all in a religious minority somewhere in this country. What would happen if a Baptist family in Georgia were to move to a school district in Dearborn, Michigan, where there's a very large Muslim population? How would that family feel about an Islamic prayer at their child's graduation? We all have to understand that there are other ways for religious people to acknowledge God during graduation festivities without involving government sponsorship of religion. For example, private groups can organize their own religious services to commemorate the graduation, or, so long as it's not a subterfuge for prayer, a moment of silence gives everyone the opportunity to pray or not to pray. These are the sorts of solutions that can accommodate the majority while protecting the minority.
So that's it. We've tried to give you a small glimpse of some of the rights that we as Americans have inherited.
The whole story is here, in the Bill of Rights. It is one of the most important documents in the history of the United States. You should read it sometime, because sooner or later, everybody needs a Bill of Rights to protect them.